The Eagles take down the Rams 37-20 on Sunday Night Football, improving to 9-2 on the season. And everybody is talking about Saquon Barkley's incredible performance. 255 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He definitely deserves to be in the MVP discussion, right behind Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. But my biggest takeaway from this game is how Nick Sirianni is the most overhated head coach in the National Football League. Going into this season, the media was eating this dude alive. They were calling him overrated. Remember that story that came out about the tension between him and Jalen Hurts last year, how Jalen Hurts questioned his knowledge of the X's and O's of the game. Well, for as much hate as what Nick Sirianni received coming into this season, he has proved a lot of people wrong, because the Eagles are right back in the same position that they've been the past 3 years with him as the head coach. They are the second best team in the NFC right now, behind the Detroit Lions, and they got a really good shot at making it to the Super Bowl for the second time under Nick Sirianni. And just because you have a talented team doesn't mean that means you're not a good coach, because we've seen plenty of coaches in the past, like Jason Garrett, underachieve with stacked rosters. It's one thing to have a great team, but it's another thing to be able to coach that team to reach its full potential. Nick Sirianni deserves a lot more credit than what he's been receiving for how well the Philadelphia Eagles have played this year, because last year they were 10-2. They were the best team in the conference until things went left. They had to change play callers on both the offense and defensive sides of the football. They had an ugly loss in the first round to the Buccaneers. Things definitely ended on a sour note in 2023. But this year, with the addition of Saquon Barkley and adding Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio to your staff as coordinators, this Eagles team has a great opportunity to get another Super Bowl. And I believe that Nick Sirianni personally doesn't deserve the amount of hate that he has received throughout this year. And a lot of people owe this man a sincere apology, because I remember I was listening to one of Colin Cowherd's and John Middlecoff's weekly podcast that they do reacting to the games. And they were saying how maybe the Eagles should fire Nick Sirianni and hire Bill Belichick early in the year. You know, as much as it is easy to not like Nick Sirianni, getting into it with the fans, he tends to be a little bit too overly emotional as a head coach. He embodies what you should be looking for in terms of a coach that does well connecting with the players. He does a really good job of bonding with Saquon Barkley. I never see him and Jalen Hurts having any issues on the sidelines, at least out in the open. And the players seem to really respect him. They seem to really like him. And there's this misconception that for you to be a head coach, you have to specialize in a particular area of the football. If you are offensive-minded head coach, you should be able to fix the issues that you have on that side of the football. Same thing if you're a defensive-minded coach. If you are a defensive-minded coach, then the defense should always play well. But if you're one of those coaches that is a CEO kind of coach where you just oversee everything that's going on, the respect level that people tend to have for you isn't really that high, because they think that because you don't specialize in a certain area of the ball that you're just inept of being a good head coach, when that couldn't be far from the truth. Nick Sirianni is really good at hiring the right coordinators. He did a good job when they went to the Super Bowl a few years back, when he had Jonathan Gannon and who was they off? Shane Steichen. Both of those dudes are now head coaches right now, and they all are having somewhat of some success. So if you can hire two really good coordinators that become head coaches, why can't you do it again? Last year he whiffed with his coordinator hires, and it was a large reason why the season went south. But any good head coach has their fair share of hits and misses when it comes to hiring the right guys on their coaching staff. The good thing is that Nick Sirianni isn't one of those coaches that holds on to guys longer than what he needs to. He realizes that the guys he had last year weren't good enough to get the job done, so he fired them once the season ended and replaced them with better candidates like Kellen Moore, who he's a household name, but he's not one of those OCs that you look at as head coach material, but he's a really good coordinator. If you give him a good team and you give him a solid quarterback, he's going to call some really good plays for you. You're going to have a successful offense. And Vic Fangio has been one of the more influential defensive minds that has entered the league over the last decade. There are so many defensive coordinators that a lot of their scheme and how they run certain coverages is inspired by Vic Fangio. So the staff that the Eagles have had this year is miles better than what they had in 2023. And it's a big reason why the Eagles are one of the best teams, not only in the NFC, but in the NFL as a whole. I like the Philadelphia Eagles to make it to the Super Bowl this year over the Detroit Lions. I just think from top to bottom, they have a more complete roster. And as good as what the Lions are, I just feel defensively the Eagles are more trustworthy than what the Lions are. But overall, Nick Sirianni, he doesn't deserve the amount of hate that he has received over the last couple of months. And although he does tend to make some bad decisions from time to time, that's any head coach. Sean McVay made some bad decisions in this game tonight. Andy Reid makes a few bad decisions. There is no such thing as a perfect head coach. The only thing that should matter is if you can win or not. And Nick Sirianni, he's done that better than the majority of coaches that we have in the league right now. This is the third straight year the Eagles are top 2 in the NFC. And looks like they are on their way to not just making it to the playoffs, but also potentially making another Super Bowl run. And a lot of credit has to go to Nick Sirianni. It's one thing to have a talented team. It's another thing to have a talented team and coach it to its full potential.